Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. The glowing eyes of the alien woman seemed to pierce through him, as though she was staring not at his face, but into his very being. Around them, murmurs rose from the crowd, whispers in countless, alien tongues that his translator couldn't keep up with. He could only catch fragments, words like oath, bond, and impossible. The alien woman finally spoke, her voice trembling like glass struck by wind. "You spoke the vow." Ethan blinked, confused. "What? No, I didn't. I only meant—" He raised his hands helplessly. It was just a compliment. But she didn't look convinced. Instead, she turned sharply to the beings standing near her, the ones with crystal-like skin and glowing armor. They reacted at once, their movements quick and deliberate. One of them tapped at a small device, and within moments, more Veyari, if that was her people's name, approached. The air grew heavy as attention shifted fully onto Ethan. He wanted to run, but running was the last thing a diplomat should. So he forced himself to stay still, though his palms sweated and his throat felt dry. The woman, Serenia, though he didn't yet know her name, faced him again. Her voice was firmer now, filled with authority. "Human, do you understand what you have declared?" Ethan tried to keep his tone calm, though inside he was panicking. "No, I don't understand. I only said you had beautiful eyes, that's all." Gasps spread through the crowd, as though his attempt at clarification had only made things worse. The crystalline beings began to murmur loudly, their glowing eyes flickering in strange rhythms. One of them approached Serenia and whispered in her ear, though Ethan's translator could only catch fragments. "Cannot, unless oath-binding." Ethan shook his head, his nerves fraying. "Listen, please. On Earth, telling someone they have nice eyes is just a kind word. A way of being friendly. It doesn't mean anything more." Serenia stared at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes shifting colors slowly. Finally, she spoke. Her words, heavy. "Among my people, to speak of one's eyes is to pledge your spirit. It is the vow of eternal bond, sworn only once in a lifetime. It is sacred." Ethan's stomach dropped. Sacred. Eternal. Vow. None of those words belonged to a casual compliment. His translator repeated them in his ear, each one striking harder. Then the last. The silence stretched until one of the crystalline men stepped forward. His voice was deep, carrying weight. "If this human speaks the vow, then he must prove the intent. To speak falsely is dishonor. To speak true is binding." Ethan looked around desperately, hoping one of the other species might intervene, but most only watched with interest. Some even smiled faintly, as if this was the most entertainment they had seen in weeks. To them, perhaps, humanity's mistake was a spectacle. "Wait," Ethan said quickly. "This is a misunderstanding. Humans don't share that tradition. We don't use words like that as vows. Where I come from, it's just polite." But the alien's eyes remained cold. "Then let the trial decide." Serenia looked uncertain, but she didn't speak against him. Ethan's heart hammered as the crowd stirred. The word trial spread quickly, repeated in many voices until it seemed to echo off the chamber walls. Within minutes, station officials arrived, neutral beings assigned to oversee disputes. They were tall, cloaked creatures with smooth faces, their voices calm as they spoke. "There has been a declaration. The Veyari demand a trial of intent. The human must participate." Ethan's mouth went dry. He tried to protest. "But I didn't declare anything. This is a mistake." The official tilted its head. "And yet your words were spoken. Under council law, the trial may proceed. To refuse is to admit deceit." Ethan felt the weight of 100 eyes on him. He thought of Earth's fragile position in this new interstellar community. Humanity was barely trusted, still seen as children who had stumbled into the stars too early. If he refused, it could brand his people as liars or dishonorable. If he agreed, he had no idea what would happen. He took a deep breath, forcing his shaking hands to still. "Then, I'll face the trial." A low hum rippled through the crowd, some approving, others doubtful. The officials nodded once. It will be prepared. Ethan barely had time to gather his thoughts before he was led away, flanked by 2 of the cloaked officials and several Veyari. Serenia walked with them, silent, her glowing eyes never leaving him. He wanted to speak to her, to explain again, but something about her expression stopped him. It was not anger he saw there, nor hatred, but something harder to define. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity. They entered a side chamber, smaller but no less impressive. The walls glittered with embedded crystals pulsing faintly as if alive. At the center stood a circular platform with strange patterns etched into it, glowing softly. One of the officials turned to Ethan. The trial of intent is ancient to the Veyari. It tests not strength of body, but truth of spirit. You will enter the chamber. It will challenge you. If your words carry sincerity, you will endure. If they do not, the chamber will reveal falsehood. Ethan's stomach twisted. What happens if it reveals falsehood? The official's tone was calm, almost indifferent. Then you will be cast out, dishonored, your people's name marked as untrustworthy. Ethan swallowed hard. And if I succeed, then the vow stands. The words hit him like a blow. He had hoped success would clear him, prove it was a mistake. But no, the very act of passing would mean the vow was real. His heart raced as he realized the impossible choice. Either fail and shame Earth, or succeed and be bound to a vow he never meant to make. Serenia stepped closer, her eyes glowing softly. Her voice was quieter now, less sharp. Human, you should not have spoken such words so lightly. But perhaps there is truth in you still. Ethan met her gaze, struggling to find words. I didn't mean it the way you think. But I didn't lie either. Your eyes, they are incredible. I've never seen anything like them. For a moment, Serenia's expression softened, the colors in her eyes shifting slower, calmer, but then she turned away. Enter the chamber. Let it decide. Ethan took a deep breath, his pulse roaring in his ears. He stepped onto the platform. The patterns beneath his feet glowed brighter, lines of light spreading outward like veins of energy. The air grew heavy, humming with power. Slowly the chamber darkened, leaving only the glow of the crystals. The last thing he saw before the light enveloped him was Serenia's eyes, bright and unreadable, watching him as though she were seeing the start of something neither of them could control. The chamber shifted. Suddenly, Ethan was no longer standing on the platform. He was in a vast space that seemed endless, filled with swirling lights and shadows. The ground beneath him was firm but looked like glass, reflecting fragments of himself at odd angles. He could hear whispers in the air, voices that sounded like his own but twisted, accusing. You lied. You spoke without thought. You made a vow you did not understand. He clenched his fists. I didn't lie. I was just trying to be kind. His voice echoed strangely, bouncing back at him in broken pieces. The lights shifted, forming shapes, memories maybe, or illusions. He saw his younger self standing before a classroom, stumbling over words during a speech. He saw his family, faces filled with doubt when he told them he wanted to join the diplomatic corps. He heard his own voice saying, I'll make them proud, but also the fear beneath it. What if I fail? The whispers pressed harder. You speak lightly. You do not understand the weight of words. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, but deep inside he knew there was truth. He had spoken without thought, hoping only to be polite, to fill silence. But was that truly a weakness? Or was there meaning hidden even in careless kindness? He steadied his breath. I didn't know your customs, but when I said her eyes were great, I meant it. They are. They made me stop, they made me think, they made me feel something. If that's wrong, then so be it. But it wasn't a lie. The chamber pulsed with light brighter now, as though listening. The shadows surged, forming into a towering figure, faceless and massive. It loomed over him, its voice booming. Will you carry the weight of what you spoke? Will you accept the bond even if you did not know it? Ethan trembled. He thought of Earth, of humanity's place in this vast galaxy. He thought of the curious, unreadable eyes of Serenia. And he thought of the truth, that even if his words had been careless, he had meant them sincerely in that moment. He straightened his shoulders. If my words carry weight, then I'll bear it. I won't run. The figure paused, then dissolved into light. The whispers faded. The chamber brightened, the glassy ground glowing beneath his feet. The energy surged once more, then released him. Suddenly he was back on the platform, gasping for breath. The officials stood where they had been, Serenia at their side. The crystals in the walls glowed brighter than before. One of the officials spoke. The chamber has spoken. The human's words are true. The vow stands. Ethan's heart pounded, relief and dread twisting together. He had survived, but at what cost? Serenia's eyes met his, glowing with a strange new light. She spoke softly, but her words carried through the hall. Then the bond is real. Ethan realized in that moment that his life, and perhaps the fate of humanity's place among the stars, had just changed forever. The station never felt the same after the trial. Ethan had stood in the arena, faced illusions of despair and refused to break. Word of his endurance spread quickly. To some, he was still a fool who stumbled into a vow he did not understand. But to many others he had become a symbol, the human who kept his word, the man who endured, the one who looked into the storm and did not fall. For Ethan, the attention was overwhelming. He found himself invited to more councils, questioned by more delegations, observed by countless eyes. Sometimes he wondered if he was still the same man who had nervously said a compliment to an alien woman. Sometimes he wondered if he was living someone else's story. But then Serenia would be near him, her eyes glowing faintly, and he would remember why he had not walked away. Late one night, he stood on the observation deck, looking at the endless stars. He thought about Earth, its busy cities, its endless oceans, the small blue home that seemed so far away now. Did they even know what had happened here? Did they know one man's words had tied them to another species, had placed them on the path toward recognition or ruin? He heard quiet footsteps and turned. Serenia joined him, silent for a long moment as she gazed at the same stars. Her presence was calm, steady, as if she had always belonged in that space. "You carry weight on your shoulders," she said softly. Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Feels more like a mountain?" Her eyes shifted with faint silver light. "You are not the first to feel such weight, and you will not be the last, but you are the first human to stand here in such a way. Perhaps that is why so many watch." He leaned on the railing, his thoughts heavy. "Do you think I did the right thing? Taking the vow, accepting the trial, standing in front of all of them, pretending I had the strength of a whole species." Serenia studied him for a long moment before answering. "I do not believe you pretended. You endured because you believed. That is strength. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it only whispers, but it does not fall silent." Her words eased something in him, though the weight did not vanish. He nodded slowly, still staring at the stars. "You know, when I first saw you, I wasn't thinking about vows or trials or councils. I just thought you had great eyes." Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. And those words changed everything. The quiet moment between them was broken the next day when a new crisis shook the station. The Draelith were not satisfied. They had respected Ethan's endurance, but now they claimed humanity's bond with the Veeri gave humans privileges they did not deserve. Rumors spread that the Draelith were preparing a challenge far greater than the trial of illusions, something that could break not only Ethan, but the fragile trust between their peoples. The council gathered again. The chamber was tense, voices raised in argument. The Draelith demanded a final contest, an open challenge where Ethan would face not illusions but real danger. If he failed, the vow would be declared void, and humanity would be branded deceivers. If he succeeded, the bond would be undeniable. Ethan sat at the center, his hands clenched, his pulse pounding. He felt like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, about to step into the unknown. Sirenia placed her hand lightly on his arm, steadying him. "You do not stand alone," she whispered. He nodded, though his fear did not vanish. He rose, facing the council. "I won't run from this. If the bond between humans and the Veyari must be tested again, then let it be tested. But I promise you this, I will not break, no matter what you throw at me." The challenge was set. It would take place in a great chamber within the station, a place used for ancient trials of honor. The test was called the Passage of Fire, a Aidan trial designed to push body, mind, and spirit beyond their limits. Few who attempted it succeeded. When the day came, the chamber was filled with observers. Species from across the station gathered to witness history. Some came eager to see a human fail, others to see if perhaps something new was rising among the stars. Ethan stood at the entrance of the trial, his heart pounding. Sirenia stood beside him. She reached out and touched his hand gently, her glowing eyes steady on his. "Do not fight as one man," she said. "Fight as all of humanity. Carry them with you. That will give you strength." He swallowed hard, then nodded. With one last look at her, he stepped into the trial. The Passage of Fire was not what he expected. It was not a battle of fists or weapons. It was a journey through chambers designed to test every part of him. The first chamber filled with blazing, heat, flames roaring around him, walls shifting as if alive. His skin burned with sweat. His lungs ached, but he pushed forward. He thought of Earth's deserts, of people who survived with little water, who kept walking when hope seemed far. He told himself he could be like them. He endured. The second chamber struck his mind. Voices whispered in the darkness, doubts clawing at him. He saw visions of Earth falling, of himself betraying the vow, of Sirenia turning away in disappointment. The voices told him to stop, to surrender, to admit he was nothing. But he remembered the trial of illusions. He remembered shouting into the storm. He kept walking, whispering under his breath, "We always rise." The third chamber struck his body. The floor turned to shifting stone, every step heavy, his muscles screaming as he dragged himself forward. He stumbled, fell, pushed himself up again. His legs trembled, his arms ached. But he thought of workers on Earth who built cities, with bare hands, who toiled with nothing but willpower. If they could endure, so could he. The final chamber was the worst. It was silent, empty, and endless. He walked and walked, with no walls, no end in sight. His strength drained away, his breath grew shallow. He wanted to stop. He wanted to collapse. But then he thought of Sirenia's eyes, glowing with trust. He thought of Earth, fragile but proud, waiting for someone to carry its name with honor. He forced his legs to move one step at a time until finally, light broke through the endless dark. Ethan stumbled out of the final passage, collapsing onto the ground. His body shook with exhaustion, but he was still alive. He had not given up. He had endured. The chamber erupted with noise. Some gasped in shock, others murmured in awe. The Draelith leader narrowed his eyes but finally gave a slow nod. Even they could not deny what they had seen. Sirenia rushed to Ethan's side, kneeling beside him. Her eyes glowed brightly as she looked at him, pride shining in her expression. "You endured again," she whispered. Ethan managed a weak laugh. "Told you, humans are stubborn." The council gathered soon after. One by one, the representatives acknowledged the vow. The bond between humans and the Veyari was no longer questioned. Humanity was accepted not as equals yet, but as a people who had earned the right to stand among them. Ethan stood before them, his body still aching but his spirit steady. "Humanity is small," he said. "We are new to the stars, and we have much to learn, but we will not run from hardship. We will not break our word. We may stumble, we may fall, but we will rise again and again. That is who we are." The chamber was silent for a moment, then filled with voices of agreement. Later, when the crowds had faded and the council dispersed, Ethan and Serenia returned to the quiet observation deck. He leaned on the railing, gazing at the stars, his body still sore but his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "You changed everything," Serenia said softly beside him. He shook his head. "No, I just said the wrong words at the right time." She tilted her head, her glowing eyes studying him. "Sometimes the wrong words can be the beginning of truth." He smiled faintly. "And sometimes the right eyes can change a life." For a long moment they stood in silence, two figures from different worlds, bound by words, trials, and something deeper that neither fully understood yet. The stars stretched out before them, vast and endless, full of challenges yet to come. But Ethan no longer felt small. He no longer felt like an outsider who didn't belong. He had endured, he had spoken, he had stood, and now he carried not just his own name, but the name of humanity into the stars. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Ethan's breathing slowed, but his heart was still racing. The glow of the chamber faded, leaving only the steady lights of the platform. He stood in silence, his body tense, his mind full of questions he could not answer. Around him, the Vayari delegation watched carefully, their crystalline eyes glimmering. The cloaked officials gave a slow nod, marking the end of the trial. "The chamber has decided," one official said in a steady tone. "The human has spoken true. The vow is bound." Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but no sound came. The weight of those words pressed against him, as if invisible chains had wrapped around his shoulders. He wanted to say again that it was a mistake, that he never meant such a thing. But what good would it do? The chamber had judged. The aliens believed. His denial would not undo what had already been decided. The crowd outside the chamber stirred with voices, some surprised, some amused, others curious. Ethan could feel the attention of dozens of species pressing in on him, as if they all wanted to see how this strange human would react. Serenia stepped forward, her crystalline eyes glowing with a softer light than before. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, as though she was trying to keep control over her own emotions. "You have passed the trial. Your spirit has proven itself. By our law, the vow is real." Ethan shook his head slowly, his voice rough. "I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know your customs. I only wanted to be polite." Her eyes shifted colors, a slow ripple of violet and silver. "Intent does not matter to the chamber. The truth in your heart was enough. You saw my eyes, and you spoke with sincerity. That is enough for the vow." Ethan felt a surge of frustration. "But what does it mean for me? What does it mean for humanity? You're saying that because I said 3 words, I've tied myself to you forever?" Serenia tilted her head as though studying him. "It is not so simple. The vow is a bond of loyalty, of unity. It does not chain you like a prisoner. It joins you. Among my people, such words are never spoken lightly. They are spoken only once in a lifetime." The crowd whispered louder, their voices filling the chamber. Ethan caught fragments through his translator. "A human bound. Strange species, reckless but true. Perhaps they are not as primitive as we thought." The realization struck him. This wasn't just about him anymore. Every word, every gesture he made would reflect on his entire species. If he looked weak or dishonest, humans would be seen the same way. If he looked strong and honorable, maybe humanity would gain respect. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to stand straighter. "Then what happens next?" One of the crystalline men stepped forward, his voice deep and steady. "Next, the bond must be recognized by the clan. You will meet the elders. They will judge the path of your union." Ethan's stomach twisted. Elders, judgment, union. He felt like he had fallen into a story he could not control. Yet refusing was impossible. To back down now would not only shame him, but Earth itself. The officials guided him out of the chamber. Serenia walked beside him silent. The hall outside was crowded, aliens of all shapes and sizes whispering as he passed. Some looked amused, others curious, a few even respectful. Ethan kept his eyes forward, pretending he didn't notice. As they walked, he tried to speak to Serenia quietly. I don't understand why this means so much. On Earth, words are important, yes, but not every compliment is a vow. Her gaze flicked toward him, sharp but not cruel. Your people must not know the danger of careless words. Among us, words shape bonds stronger than steel. To speak of eyes is to speak of the soul. You touched something sacred without knowing. Ethan sighed. I didn't mean to offend, I just wanted to talk. I thought it was harmless. Her expression softened slightly. And yet, you passed the trial. That means you spoke truth, even if you did not know its weight. That is why I cannot dismiss it. They reached another chamber, larger and filled with faintly glowing pillars. At the center stood a group of Veyari elders, their forms tall and regal, their crystalline eyes glowing more brightly than Serenia's. They regarded Ethan with calm, unreadable faces. The eldest spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber like the sound of stones striking glass. You are the human who spoke the vow. Ethan bowed awkwardly, unsure of the proper gesture. Yes, but I did not know it was a vow. I didn't mean to cause offense. The elder studied him. And yet you did not deny your words. You entered the trial. You endured. This speaks of courage. Another elder leaned forward, her eyes glowing green. But does the human understand the meaning? A vow is not for amusement, a vow is for life. Ethan hesitated, then forced himself to speak honestly. I don't fully understand. But I know this. I meant what I said. Your people's eyes. Serenia's eyes. They are unlike anything I have ever seen. They made me pause. They made me speak. If that carries meaning for you, then I will not run from it. The chamber grew quiet. The elders regarded him with intensity as though weighing his soul. Finally, the eldest spoke again. Then the vow is accepted. The bond between you and Serenia is recognized. This is no longer only between two individuals. It is between two peoples. Ethan's heart pounded. Between two peoples. The weight of it pressed down harder than before. He wasn't just tied to Serenia now. This was about Earth, about humanity's place among the stars. Serenia bowed her head slightly to the elders, her voice calm. I accept. The decision spread quickly through the station. Within hours, whispers of the human's vow reached every corner. Some species laughed at humanity's foolishness. Others were impressed by their boldness. A few grew wary, wondering what it meant that humans could form such bonds so easily. That evening, Ethan found himself in a smaller chamber, seated across from Serenia. For the first time since the incident, they were alone. The silence stretched between them until Ethan finally broke it. I don't know what to say to you, he admitted quietly. Serenia's gaze was steady. Then speak truth, that is enough. He rubbed his hands together, searching for words. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but I don't regret what I said. It was the truth. I just don't know what it means for us, for our people. Her eyes shifted slowly, glowing softer. Perhaps neither of us knows yet, but the bond exists. That cannot be undone. Ethan leaned back, sighing. On Earth, sometimes people make promises they can't keep. Sometimes they say things they don't mean. But I don't want this to be one of those times. If this bond matters so much to you, then I'll respect it, even if I don't understand it fully yet. Serenia regarded him for a long time, then nodded once. Perhaps that is why the chamber accepted you. Not because you understood, but because you were honest. A strange silence followed, not tense but thoughtful. For the first time, Ethan felt a flicker of connection that went beyond fear or confusion. It was fragile, but real. In the days that followed, the bond became the talk of the station. Other delegations began to approach Ethan with questions. Some were curious about human customs. Others tested his resolve, asking if he would truly stand by the vow. To his surprise, the more he answered, the more he found himself believing his own words. Humans were often underestimated, seen as reckless and naive. But here he was, proving that even a careless human word could carry enough sincerity to change interstellar politics. Slowly, respect began to grow. Serenia stayed close during those days, guiding him through the expectations of her people. She explained their customs, their traditions, their views of loyalty. Ethan listened carefully, absorbing what he could. He began to see that her people valued bonds more deeply than anything else. Trust, once given, was eternal. One evening, as they walked through a quiet corridor, Ethan spoke softly. "Do you regret it? That I said those words?" Serenia was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "No, I do not regret. Your words were reckless, but they were true. Among my people, truth is rare. Many speak with caution, but few speak with heart. You did. That is why I do not regret." Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words. Perhaps, just perhaps, this misunderstanding was not entirely a mistake, but even as he began to feel a fragile bond forming, he knew challenges still lay ahead. The vow had been accepted, but what it truly meant for humanity and the Veyari was still uncertain. The galaxy was watching, and not all species would welcome the idea of humans forging such deep ties so soon. For now, though, Ethan walked beside Serenia, feeling the weight of her presence and the strange new bond that had begun to take root between them. What had started as a simple compliment had become something far larger than either of them had expected, and he could not shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Ethan Hale had never been so nervous in his life. The silver walls of the station curved around him, smooth and seamless, glowing faintly with blue light. Everything about the place felt larger than life, as though he had stepped into the pages of one of the science fiction books he used to read as a child. But this was no fiction. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, a station where dozens of alien civilizations gathered to speak, argue, trade, and sometimes threaten. Humanity had only recently been invited to participate. For Ethan, a young diplomat with more courage than experience, the invitation felt like both an honor and a burden. He walked through the vast hall, trying not to stare at every alien shape that passed him. Some towered with insect-like limbs, clicking their mandibles as they moved. Others floated in shimmering spheres, their forms hidden behind shifting veils of light. There were beings covered in fur, others with scales, and a few that seemed made entirely of energy. Ethan kept reminding himself that this was normal here. For them, humans were just another new species in a long list. For him, it was overwhelming. His suit was standard for Earth diplomats, dark blue with a silver crest at the chest, bearing the symbol of the United Nations of Earth. It looked clean, neat, and professional, but next to the radiant robes, glimmering, armor and flowing garments of other species, he felt plain. He tugged at his sleeve, trying to focus. Today's event was a cultural exchange, a gathering where representatives could show their traditions, their art, their food, or their stories. Ethan had prepared a small speech about Earth's diversity, about how billions of humans spoke thousands of languages, painted, sang, and dreamed in countless different ways. He wanted to show that even though humans were new to the stars, they had something worth sharing. He rehearsed the opening lines in his head as he entered the main chamber. The ceiling rose so high that he couldn't see the top. It disappeared into a soft glow. Platforms of different heights floated at various levels, each holding groups of aliens speaking among themselves. The air hummed with voices, tones that his translator in his ear tried to turn into understandable words. The result was imperfect but better than silence. Ethan scanned the chamber, looking for his assigned place. That was when he noticed her. She stood slightly apart from the others, near a cluster of beings with crystalline armor. Her figure was tall and graceful, humanoid in shape but not fully human. Her skin shimmered faintly, pale like the inside of a seashell, catching the light with every motion. Her hair fell like strands of silver, smooth and reflective, moving as if it carried a life of its own. but it was her eyes that stopped him in his tracks. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Large, faceted, and glowing faintly, they looked as though they held fragments of stars within them. Each angle caught the light differently, creating an endless play of colors, blues, purples, and silvers that seemed alive. For a moment, Ethan forgot about his speech, the hall, and even the translator buzzing in his ear. The alien woman turned her gaze toward him. He realized with a jolt that he had been staring. Embarrassed, he quickly looked away, pretending to check the device in his hand. But something about her eyes lingered in his mind, a strange mix of beauty and mystery. The ceremony began. One by one, representatives stepped forward to present. A scaled reptilian creature played a string instrument with 6 hands, its tones deep and vibrating through the chamber. A group of small insect-like beings performed a synchronized dance, their wings buzzing in rhythm. A floating orb projected images of vast landscapes on its surface, showing the wonders of its homeworld. When it was Ethan's turn, he swallowed his nerves and stepped forward. His voice trembled at first, but he steadied it as he spoke of Earth. He talked about the deserts and oceans, the mountains and forests. He spoke of human creativity, of paintings that told stories without words, of music that stirred emotions across cultures. He even shared a short poem translated into the common tongue about the stars guiding travelers home. When he finished, there was polite applause, or at least something close to applause, since many species expressed approval in different ways. Some tapped their limbs, some hummed, others simply glowed brighter. Ethan bowed slightly and stepped back, relieved it was over. As he returned to his place, he noticed the alien woman again. She was watching him, her star-filled eyes steady on his face. For some reason, that gaze made him feel both nervous and curious. He hesitated, then walked toward her. The closer he came, the more he noticed the subtle details of her appearance. The faint glow of her skin was not just a reflection. It seemed to pulse softly like light moving through crystal. Her silver hair carried hints of blue when it shifted under the lights. Her posture was calm, almost regal but not unapproachable. When he reached her, he gave a polite nod, unsure if that was the right gesture. "Hello," he said softly. The translator echoed the word in her language. She tilted her head, studying him. Her voice, when it came, was like soft chimes carried by the wind. "Human, you spoke of your world. It was unusual. Your kind is new here." Ethan nodded. "Yes. We're still learning." There was a short silence. He wanted to say something more, but every thought felt clumsy. He remembered how she had watched him with those remarkable eyes. The words slipped out before he could stop them. "You have great eyes." The words hung in the air, translated into her tongue by the device in his ear. For Ethan, it was a simple compliment, an attempt to break the silence. He expected maybe a smile or a nod of thanks. Instead, her expression changed instantly. Her crystalline eyes widened, glowing brighter, their colors shifting rapidly like a storm of stars. She drew in a sharp breath, almost a gasp, and stepped back. Her hand lifted slightly, trembling, as if he had spoken something forbidden. Around her, the other crystalline beings turned sharply toward them. Conversation stopped. The chamber, which moments ago was filled with sound, grew quieter as heads turned in their direction. Ethan froze, realizing something was very wrong. He tried to smile awkwardly, raising his hands in peace. "I just meant it was a compliment." But the alien woman's gaze was locked on him, intense, unreadable. Her eyes blazed with light, brighter than before. And in that silence, Ethan understood one thing with certainty. Whatever he had just said to her, it was not taken as a casual remark. It meant something else, something serious, and he had no idea what. The days after the vow spread like a storm through the station. Whispers followed Ethan wherever he went. Some alien delegations approached him with smiles, curious to learn about humans and their strange ways. Others kept their distance, their eyes narrow, as if they suspected hidden motives behind his words. The truth was simple. No one had expected a human to pass the Veyari trial. No one had expected a careless compliment to turn into something the entire galaxy would talk about. For Ethan, each step he took now felt heavier. He was not only walking for himself but for his people. Every sentence, every gesture was being watched. Humanity was young in the stars, fragile compared to the ancient empires around them. But now, by accident or fate, he had drawn all eyes to them. Serenia was rarely far from him. Sometimes she walked at his side in silence, her glowing eyes unreadable. Other times she spoke softly, explaining the customs of her people and warning him of mistakes to avoid. Ethan had begun to trust her guidance, though he still felt the distance between their worlds. One evening, as they left a meeting with another delegation, Ethan spoke quietly. "Do you think your people regret it? That the vow was accepted?" Serenia paused, her silver hair catching the light as she turned toward him. "There are some who see danger. They believe your kind speaks too easily, without thought. They fear a bond with such people may bring dishonor. But there are others who see possibility. They believe you are bold in ways we are not. They see strength in your honesty." Ethan sighed. "So half of them think I'm a fool and the other half think I'm some kind of hero." Her eyes glowed with a faint ripple of violet. "Perhaps you are both." They continued walking in, silence, but Ethan could not forget her words. Fool and hero, was that not the story of humanity itself? Always stumbling, always reaching, sometimes failing, sometimes surprising even themselves. The following day brought new challenges. A council session had been called, and Ethan was summoned to stand before representatives of several powerful species. He entered the vast chamber with Serenia at his side. The air was heavy with expectation. One of the council members, a towering reptilian with scales like bronze, leaned forward. "Human, you have spoken the Veyari vow. Do you claim this as an alliance between your people and theirs?" Ethan hesitated. His throat felt dry. "I don't speak for all of humanity. I can't. I'm only one man." The reptilian's eyes narrowed. "And yet your actions speak loudly. Already some call this the first bond of your species. If you will not claim it, then perhaps your kind is not ready to sit among us." The words struck hard. Ethan looked around the chamber, seeing the weight of judgment in the eyes of many. He wanted to protest, to explain again that it was an accident, but he remembered Serenia's warning. Excuses would only make him look weak. He took a deep breath. "I will not speak for all humans," he said firmly, "but I will speak for myself. I made a vow even without knowing your customs. I passed your trial and I stand by the truth I spoke. If that means an alliance, then I will honor it. If that means responsibility, then I will bear it. Humanity may be new to the stars, but we do not run from our words once they are given." The chamber filled with murmurs. Some nodded, impressed. Others frowned, suspicious. But the words had been spoken, and they could not be taken back. Serenia's gaze rested on him, her crystalline eyes shimmering with faint light. She gave the smallest nod, a gesture of approval. Ethan felt a flicker of strength return. But not everyone was pleased. After the session ended, as Ethan and Serenia walked through the corridors, a group of alien delegates intercepted them. They were tall, with dark skin that shimmered like oil and sharp eyes that gleamed with hostility. Their leader stepped forward. "You speak as though your kind matters," the alien said, his voice low and dangerous. "But humanity is nothing. You are weak, untested children who stumble into places you do not belong. The Veyari may have been deceived by you, but we are not." Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had no weapon, no power, only words. He met the alien's gaze. "We may be new, but that doesn't make us worthless. Every great civilization began somewhere. We're still learning, but we'll prove ourselves." The alien sneered. "We will test that. Words mean nothing without strength." He turned sharply and walked away, his followers close behind. Ethan let out a shaky breath. That didn't sound like a friendly conversation. Serenia's voice was calm, but serious. "They are from the Draelith. They despise weakness. They We'll look for ways to break you. You must be ready. Ethan rubbed his temples. I didn't ask for any of this. No, she said softly. But you accepted it. The days that followed were filled with tension. The Draelith began to challenge Ethan at every opportunity. They questioned his words during meetings, mocked humanity's inexperience, and tried to provoke him. Ethan struggled to stay calm, but Serenya's quiet presence kept him steady. She reminded him when to speak, when to stay silent, when to show strength, and when to let insults pass. One night, as they sat in a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars, Ethan finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Why are you helping me? You could have left me to fail. You could have told your people the vow was a mistake. Serenya's eyes glowed softly in the starlight. Because the chamber judged you true. That means something. I do not know yet what it means, but I cannot ignore it. And because when you spoke to me, I believed you. No one has ever spoken to me like that before. Ethan felt his chest tighten with something he couldn't name. He looked at her glowing eyes, the very thing that had started all of this, and for the first time he didn't regret his words. The next challenge came sooner than expected. The Draelith delegation announced a formal test, a trial of skill to prove whether the human's bond carried any real strength. If he refused, humanity would be branded as cowards. If he accepted and failed, the bond would be seen as worthless. Ethan sat with Serenya as they prepared. What kind of trial is this? He asked. They will test your will, she replied. The Draelith believe in strength above all else. But strength is not only in the body, it is in endurance, in resolve. If you show weakness, they will not respect you. Ethan laughed nervously. Endurance I can do. I've been surviving awkward conversations my whole life. Her lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. Then survive this one too. The trial was held in a vast arena within the station. Representatives from many species gathered to watch. The Draelith stood tall, their dark forms gleaming under the lights. Ethan stepped into the center, his heart pounding but his resolve steady. Serenya watched from the side, her glowing eyes fixed on him. The test was not a fight, as Ethan had feared, but a challenge of the mind. The Draelith had created a device that projected illusions designed to break the spirit. One by one, participants would face their greatest fears, their deepest doubts until they gave up. Ethan entered the device. At once the world shifted. He stood not in the arena but in the ruins of Earth, cities burning, skies black with smoke. Voices whispered around him, voices of doubt, voices of failure. You are weak. You don't belong. Humanity will fall because of you. The visions pressed against him, heavy and relentless. He saw his family turning away, disappointed. He saw Earth crushed under alien rule. He saw himself, standing alone, powerless. For a moment, despair filled him. He wanted to give up, to say it was too much. But then he remembered Serenya's words. Survive this one too. He remembered her eyes, glowing with trust he did not think he deserved. He remembered Earth, fragile but full of hope, waiting for someone to prove they belonged. He clenched his fists and shouted into the illusion. I'm not weak. Humanity is not weak. We've faced despair before and we'll face it again. We may fall, but we'll rise. We always rise. The illusions shuddered, cracked, and shattered. Light filled the space, and suddenly Ethan was back in the arena, gasping for breath but standing tall. The crowd murmured in shock. The Draelith leader scowled but gave a slow nod of respect. Serenya stepped forward, her eyes shining brighter than ever. You endured, she said softly. Ethan managed a shaky smile. Told you I was good at surviving awkward situations. But inside he knew it was more than that. He had proven something, not just to the Draelith, not just to the Veyari, but to himself. Humanity might be small and new among the stars, but they had a strength no illusion could break. The galaxy had seen it, and there was no turning back.